I'm taking the organization on a new journey it hasn't been on, right? Because we're evolving. So we're modernizing the organization, and I'm really aspiring for excellence in everything that we do.
Yes.
Not perfection,
but
right? Excellence.
We always say excellent is the standard, not the goal.
Yes.
It is the standard.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hello, and welcome to the Leadership Reality Podcast with your girl, Taiji Charity. This podcast is for C-suite leaders to discuss their experiences and provide insight, encouragement, and inspiration for seasoned and inspiring leaders, offering valuable solutions to today's challenges that will inspire, ignite, and invigorate new and seasoned leaders to walk in their God-given authority with compassion, kindness, and empathy. So sit back, relax, and be prepared to be inspired with today's episode of Leadership Reality. Thank you.
Welcome to another episode of Leadership Realities with me, Taiji Charity. Today's guest is Fatima Djelmane Rodriguez, who is the CEO of the Ronald McDonald House Charities of Southern California. Fatima is the first Latina CEO of Ronald McDonald House Charities of Southern California and the largest Ronald McDonald House Charities chapter in North America. A San Gabriel Valley native, she is dedicated to family-centered care and supporting families with children facing medical crisis. Her leadership earned her recognition as a finalist for the Los Angeles Business Journal's Executive of the Year. With degrees from USC and the University of Texas at Austin, Fatima previously strengthened Proyecto Pastoral's infrastructure and financial stability. After joining Camp Ronald McDonald for Good Times in 2013, she became Executive Director in 2017 and CEO in 2022, overseeing Ronald McDonald House Charities operations. Fatima is committed to mentoring young professionals and cherishes time with her husband and daughters, Alejandra and Emma. Her leadership reflects a strong dedication to service and community. Fatima, welcome to the show.
Thank you. So excited to be here today.
Thank you. We all know and love the Ronald McDonald House Charities. Thank you for the work that you're doing. But for those of us who don't know, just give us just the mission of the charity and what exactly the Ronald McDonald House does.
Yeah, so we're actually celebrating 50 years.
Congratulations.
This year, yes, and we are a global organization. We started in Philadelphia, and it started with the dream of one pediatric oncologist in Philadelphia 50 years ago, Dr. Audrey Evans, which you can imagine she was heading an oncology department 50 years ago when women couldn't even apply for credit on their own.
Wow.
Yeah, and so she had this vision, you know, she said, my patients really need a place to stay close to the hospital because a lot of her patients, the families would stop treatment because they didn't have a place to stay.
Right.
And staying in a hotel was just not financially possible. So that's where the dream of the Ronald McDonald House started. We're now in 60 countries worldwide. We are actually the largest nonprofit organization in the world, serving millions of people every single year. And so coming back to Southern California, we have 7 houses throughout Southern California. We have a year-round camp for children with cancer and their families, and we have 3 family rooms, which are located on a NICU or PICU floor of a hospital. So the idea is that families get to stay close while their child is in treatment for any type of ailment or medical crisis that they're dealing with.
Yes. Well, I want to say thank you because I have a niece who was a beneficiary of the Ronald McDonald House when she was in high school and developed a lump on her leg. And she treated at I think it was the New York location. So I know kind of firsthand of just the amazing services that you all provide. So it's just a pleasure and an honor to be able to sit with you today and talk about this chapter, the chapter that you lead here in Southern California, and just your journey as a leader. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
When did you know you were a leader?
Well, you know, I was reflecting on that question, and it was really when I was in college at USC, and I joined a group called Nuestra Alma Latina, which was a group focused on seeing Latinas through their college education within the 4 years. What often would happen, especially, you know, early on in the in the 90s, what we were experiencing was a lot of people of color getting accepted into university, but then dropping out after a year or two because there was such a disconnect and a culture shock and just not having that generational experience of having gone to college.
Yeah.
So this group was formed so that Latinas had a support network to see them through their college journey. So I was part of that group. I found community there. It was really what I needed, especially at USC. I did experience that culture shock, even though my mother went to USC, but I still experienced that. So I remember there was an opening for the president of the club, and there was nobody who was willing to step forward because we were all overwhelmed with school.
Just being in college.
Yeah, and work. And so that's where I have often found myself with leadership positions. It's not something that I'm striving for, that, you know, this is the next step for me in terms of the title or that leadership position. It's more that there's a need, and sometimes there isn't a willingness in the room to step into that position. And so that was the first time that I acknowledged myself as a leader was in college.
That's great, because oftentimes we step into spaces where we see a need and we're often afraid, or we don't feel qualified, or we don't. And sometimes you don't know that you are until you take that step and say, I'll do it.
Yes.
If no one else will step in, I'll take that leap of faith. I'll do what I can. And here we are today.
Yes.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So what has the journey been like for you, though? Just leading from growing within the Ronald McDonald Charity, different positions. You've evolved now to the CEO. What has that journey been like for you?
Yeah, it's been a very exciting journey, very challenging, but also really fulfilling. I've loved my leadership journey. I started really when I was at Proyecto Pastoral. That was my first job out of grad school, and I started as the development associate, so really frontline fundraiser, doing gift acknowledgements and things like that. And within 6 months, I was promoted to the development director position. So I was 26 years old as a development director, and as a woman of color, there was not a lot of women of color in the fundraising space. So I didn't have a lot of mentors, and I really had to seek them out. And that was another example of a leadership opportunity that became available, was not expected, and I said, you know what, let me give it a try without really having development experience because I was a young professional. So I learned a lot in my experience at Proyecto. I was there 7.5 years. I served as interim executive director twice when our ED was on maternity leave. So I gained a lot of experience just through my time at Proyecto, especially because it was such a grassroots organization, and we really had to build infrastructure there. And so I decided to transition to Ronald McDonald House because I had my first child, Ale, and you know, because Proyecto was a very grassroots organization, I was wearing very many hats and working long hours, and realized I needed to have more balance. So I transitioned to Camp Ronald McDonald for Good Times as the development director, working 4 days a week. So I had my Fridays off, and I was able to spend time with my daughter and, you know, work at her preschool. And so I needed that balance at that time. And I consider those 2 years that I was working those 4 days a week, just that time for me to, like, almost hibernation. I obviously was doing my job really well, and it was second nature to me since I had been doing development at that point for 7.5 years, but gave me that time with my family that I needed. And then here comes my second daughter, and was on maternity leave, came back and decided to go back full time, transitioned to the ED job for camp. Again, our ED had an opportunity and went to another organization and applied for the position. Was in that role for 4.5 years. Our CEO at the time then announced his retirement. I put my hat in the ring for the position, really feeling like I had a vision of where we should head as an organization. Having been with the organization at that point for 9 years, I saw where there were opportunities for modernization and improvement and ways we could really strengthen our brand. And so again, I didn't foresee myself applying for a CEO position. There were many times in my career where I said, I do not want to be at the helm of an organization, because I saw the pressures and how much responsibility was on the shoulders of the leader. And I didn't think I could handle that, right? So I never saw myself at the helm of any organization.
And here we are.
And here we are. Yeah.
That's an amazing story. And the reality of being a fund developer or in development says, one, you have tough skin. Says, two, you're good in building relationships, because those are two very, vital things in order to be effective as a development person, right? So to be able to take those skills and transition those skills into the CEO role makes it probably a little bit easier for you. Not that it's easy, because I understand it's not easy at all, but makes it just a little bit easier because you understand first the financial piece of what it's going to take, and also the opportunities to continue to scale up and to continue to grow the organization. So, so how many team members do you have?
It's about 180 people that work for Ronald McDonald House of SoCal.
And just this chapter?
Just this chapter, yes.
How do you manage 100+ employees?
Yeah. Well, we have our leadership team, and so we have executive directors responsible of each house and our camp, so they're really managing their teams. And then on the chapter level, that's providing support for all of the programs. I have a chief operating officer we just hired this year. She's only been in the role for 6 months.
Okay.
So she's been an incredible lifesaver. And then we have a chief development officer. So there is a structure to have that support. But I think for me as the primary leader of the organization, being connected to the staff is really important to me. Having opportunities to hear from them, and because I worked my way up through the organization, we have a certain camaraderie, especially for those that have been around as long as I have or longer. I've been there 12 years now. So we have a really nice rapport, and I'm a very personable, easy to talk to person. So we're able to connect whenever I go visit the houses, but I've established coffee with the CEO. So once a quarter, I have a Zoom or Teams conversation with the staff, and I report out on here are the things that are happening. I also have office hours so the staff can have some one-on-one time with me. I also send out bi-monthly communications about what's going on in the organization. So with my background in communications, that's, I think, one of my strengths is I really think about how can I touch base with the staff and connect with them so that they know what's going on, but also give them an opportunity to provide feedback to me directly.
That's really good. That's really, really good. So who was your mentor in leadership? Are you just kind of on the job training for you? When you stepped into the CEO role, was it sort of like, let's figure this out, or let me connect with another CEO to kind of help guide me along the way? Or was it just your self-learned, self-studied? How did you develop to this point in your leadership style?
I think it's been a combination of mentors over my whole career. I think that's one of the things I've really sought after. When I see someone in a position doing the job the way I would like to do it, or a future role that I'm aspiring to, then I will seek them out and ask for time to connect with them. My mother is a working professional, so she was my first mentor. I learned a lot from her about networking and how to really leverage your resources and not be afraid to ask for help and ask questions. I'm really curious and inquisitive, so I have a lot of mentors. I also have the previous CEO. He and I have a very good relationship. I meet with him once a quarter. He's retired now, so he's just so happy.
That sounds so beautiful.
Yeah, he's.
I'm sure he's very
and I'll
happy.
run into him at Dodger games, and Vince
living his best life.
Yeah, I adore him. So I'm able to connect with him at least once a quarter.
Good.
And then I have a professional coach as well. I've had a coach several times throughout my career.
Okay.
The coach I have right now, Justin Hill, who, I want to promote him because he's amazing, and he specifically works with C-level folks and does coaching. Yeah.
That's amazing. And his name is Justin Hill, you said?
Yeah, Justin Hill.
Okay. Is he an author of any books on leadership? How did you connect with Justin? How did you learn about him, hear about him? How did you get connected with him?
Yeah, he hasn't authored any books, but he should.
She's like, now that I'm thinking about
Yeah,
it.
I'm like, let's talk about that. No, he's a friend of a friend.
Okay.
And so one of my good friends from high school, she was like, my friend Justin, he's a coach. I think you would really like him. And so I took the time to have a 30-minute kind of exploratory conversation to see if it would be a good match.
Mm-hmm.
I had worked with a female coach before, and I thought, okay, that's probably better suited for me. I really connect very well with women.
Mm-hmm.
But I was just amazed in that 30 minutes. He was able to ask me questions to understand where it was at, where I needed support. The way he was able to like really bring clarity to my thoughts was just amazing. So he's very skilled as a coach.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So before you leave, you're going to leave Justin's phone number so that I can give Justin a call.
Yes. Oh, I love him. I've been working with him for a year now, and
really?
It's been transformative for me as a leader.
I love that. Mm-hmm. I love that you've invested in your leadership style, because it's sometimes we don't think, we just sort of in work mode and in production mode and in impact mode. For me, I'll speak for myself, that you forget to invest in you. And I had a good friend ask me one time, I was doing an interview, and she said, Taiji, I watch you pour into so many people. She said, but who's pouring into you? And I literally had to maintain my composure, because I was like, well, they are. Like, I have really great friends that we get to talk to, but talking about or talking with people that are experiencing or have experienced sort of what you're going through is a different conversation, right? Like, because I have amazing friends who give the best advice, but just talking again to that coach or someone to help you really navigate these very specific things that you're going through. Right?
Yeah.
And that understands
yes.
those specific things that you're going. It's a little different.
Oh, very different. And he's a strategic thought partner, because he's worked in business himself and has led teams, large teams himself. He's a strategic thought partner. So he not only elicits more from me, because as a coach, you're asking a lot of questions and you're helping people come to their own conclusions. So he does that really well. But then there's moments where he'll strategize with me. So it's pretty awesome.
That's good. I look sold. Okay. Justin, your phone is going to be ringing off the hook after this interview.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So in terms of investing in your team and being very approachable as a leader, what are some of the challenges you find with having a team of 100 employees? Like, have you experienced any personnel challenges? And if so, how did you navigate those challenges?
Yeah, I feel like that's a big question, because there's always personnel issues, because humans are complex, right?
Yes, we are.
Yeah, we have a lot that we bring to work, whether it's our own trauma we've experienced and are either working through or haven't worked through, or just life challenges. I mean, we're all juggling a lot. Children, elder care, that's a huge issue right now.
Yeah.
And then also just personality clashes or having a hard time with communication in the workplace. So it's something that we're addressing as an organization right now, and we've committed to doing a culture pulse survey. So we did one last year, and then we did it again this year. And so we're tracking, like, how are staff feeling? How are they feeling in their role? Do they have clarity in their role? Are they being supported by their managers? Is communication trickling down? And so we want to continuously monitor that, and then respond to the staff and provide them with regular updates. So those coffee with the CEOs are the opportunity for me to share an update on, okay, here's where we're at, here's what we committed to, and here's where we're at. One of the things that I've learned, because we are very ambitious people and we think we can do everything.
Right.
Yeah. I've realized that some of the commitments I've made to the staff is too much. It's just not realistic, because you need to have a quarterback. You have to have a project manager to see things through fruition.
Yes.
And that's been the challenge without having a COO, especially on the HR side, in the things we want to focus on to support staff. If you don't have a quarterback, you don't have a project manager, it's not going to happen. So, in looking at our most recent culture pulse survey, we've come up with some areas that we want to focus on, but now we're going to go back to staff and we're going to say, of all of these things that were identified, what's the priority? So we can tell you that we're going to focus on these 2 things this year, because then we're not setting ourselves up for success if we have 6, things that we say we're going to focus on. So that's one of the things I've learned is really scaling back what we're committing to.
That's good. I often hear myself saying, and I learned this from a leadership group that I'm a part of, is sometimes we have to slow down to catch up, right? Because we are very ambitious people, and we move at 100 miles per hour, and everything is an urgent matter for us to implement. But it's really good as a leader when you can say, I've overcommitted. Right?
Yeah.
I've overcommitted beyond our capacity. So we need to scale back a little bit and put in a strategic plan or have that quarterback in place to help us fulfill that role. And that's thinking strategically, but also being able to admit, sorry, got a little ahead of myself because I'm ambitious, but I'm going to have to pause and then reassess, right? I find that there's a lot of reassessing. And as for me, much, much smaller nonprofit organization with a team of about, I think, 10, but a ton of volunteers, really trying to figure out what that culture looks like,
Yeah.
So establishing culture for you is getting the feedback from your employees. Is that what I understand you to say? And then trying to navigate from there. How do we give them what they want while we still move towards, of course, completing and fulfilling the mission of the organization?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the other piece of culture is emphasizing the values. For us, our values are compassion, respect, integrity, transparency, and innovation. Those are our values.
Oh, I love that.
And so really exemplifying that and reiterating over and over what the values are. And one of the things I tell staff, that it's in the way that we talk, in the way that we compose an email, the way that we decide to respond, right? So I think in order to really focus on the values and how you're behaving, you need to, rather than react, respond. And in order to respond, there needs to be a pause, right?
Yes.
And that takes a lot of self-discipline to take a moment, especially when we're frustrated or we're upset, but to really take a moment and pause and think to yourself, is the way I'm about to respond or in line with the values?
Right. That's good. It's really good. Because oftentimes emails can come across as, especially when they're very direct, people often sometimes inflect whatever they see you as presenting. I've had team members where they say, well, she said such and such, so. And I was like, but did she put all that emphasis on it? Because I'm hearing you read it, but is that how she actually, meant it when she sent it? So they were like, well, maybe not, but. I'm like, but we're adding and projecting, how we feel in the moment. But that is true. Pausing in responses. We talk about having open and honest conversations and really trying to be transparent, but also just the golden rule, treating people the way that you want to be treated and leading with kindness. Like that's a really, really big one because you're in the hustle and the bustle of work and you just want to get things done. And sometimes it can be very just abrupt and direct, but having to really pause, like you said, and say, look, how do I implement? I'm making sure that I'm implementing the company's values when I'm responding or when I'm asking for something. And it starts even with us, right? I have to remind myself often because I got 50 million things to do. For me to pause mean I might forget about it later because I've moved on to that. So I have to remind myself sometimes, like, just breathe, take a break, and then come back to those things.
Yeah.
It's really good. Do you follow any trends in leadership? Who do you follow? Who are some of your favorite leaders?
So in terms of trends, I do like to read the Harvard Business Review.
Okay.
So they have some great articles. I do follow Forbes too, just to follow the trends. I mean, I'm looking for transformational gifts, and so Forbes is really good about following who's the latest billionaire, millionaire.
Yeah.
There's a lot in Los Angeles.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find them, but I know they're here.
Yes. Yeah. So from that respect, those are the trends that I do pay attention to those things. In terms of a leader that I admire, I would say Dolores Huerta is one of those leaders. She worked alongside Cesar Chavez and started the farm worker movement. But she's 94 years old now.
Oh, wow.
And
what a
she's
blessing.
she's still working every day. My husband works for her foundation, the Dolores Huerta Foundation.
Really?
So I get to see her on occasion on Zoom, and she's there very present and very active. And what I love about Dolores is that she's an example of someone who's evolved, and her view of social justice and her impact has really evolved over time. I mean, she's an iconic leader, and she started with really the farm worker movement, but her lens on social justice and the margins for her have really expanded beyond, with women, LGBTQ community. Like she's really expanded the environment. She's expanded what social justice looks like even beyond.
That's good.
And so she's a leader that I really admire. And she's very humble too.
Wow.
Yeah.
Makes a difference. Humility definitely makes a difference.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. So tell me, in terms of being a female leader, do you find that there is a difference in comparison to some of our male leaders, for-profits? I know the difference in the for-profits and non-profits, but do you find it difficult being a female leader at the helm of such a large organization?
Yes and no. I think there's always that question in the back of your mind when you're being really pressed, I think more so than you've seen other leaders in the same position. You're being challenged a lot more. And so in the back of your mind, you're thinking, if I was a man, would I be challenged just as much, right? So I mean, there's definitely been experiences where I can say, I'll be with my board chair in the community, and when I first became CEO, they'd introduce, this is the new CEO of Ronald McDonald House, and they'd go to him to shake his hand, and they're like, oh no, it's not him, it's her. Yeah, and they'd be like, oh wow, like so surprised, So I've definitely have had those moments. I think with the support of my coach, I've really tried to focus on what is the outcome that I'm looking to achieve.
That's good.
And really just stay steadfastly focused on that. And
it's not personal. Try not to take it personally.
Right, exactly, and not give life to those narratives, because then it can kind of consume you, right?
So true.
I'm mindful about really being strategic, and if there's anyone, in my circle of influence that I think is not, I don't know, in alignment with me or my leadership style, then I'll work with them one-on-one, and I have found that has really helped.
That's good. That's really good. The one-on-one, where do you even find the time to do the work? I mean, I know you make it a priority, but how do you do that? Like, how do you make that a priority for yourself?
Well, I have an assistant who's incredible. My assistant Gabby is so helpful, and so we talk about what are the priorities. And so, like right now, I'm focusing on setting up one-on-ones with my board members. And so just really blocking out time in my calendar. And so she'll look through my calendar and she'll block out time. And then we have a checklist of like, okay, who did you meet with? I'm taking notes of all of my meetings with the board members, being really strategic about those conversations and what it is that I want to get out of those conversations. Again, working in collaboration with my coach to help me really hone in, because I want to be very intentional about everything that I do and where I'm spending my time.
Right.
So I think that's been the advantage. And it's been an evolution, right? I mean, when I first started as CEO, my day was jam-packed and there were no breaks in between. And so by the end of the day, I was like wiped out.
Yeah.
And I haven't had a day like that. Yesterday, I had a day like that. Sometimes it still happens, right? Because there are priorities that come up and you have to slot it in. But I don't have days like that anymore. I make sure I have those breaks in between my meetings. I have a lunch break every day. I have at least an hour where I'm not doing anything. I intentionally go for a walk. I walk outside. I do a meditation.
Oh, good for you.
Yes.
Good for you.
It's necessary, and I think sometimes we think that we're not being as effective because we're not filling every single moment with something work related. But your mind is not as sharp, and you start to deplete throughout the day if you don't take those moments and you don't have those breaks to process what you just engaged in for an hour. And You know, so
and you can't make the best decisions
no.
when you're exhausted.
Yeah.
I've made decisions when I was exhausted, and I went back like, what the? Who did this? Like you? I was like, oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. So self-care and prioritizing, which I've struggled with for such a long time.
I think everybody does.
Right?
Yeah, because everything feels like a priority, especially when you're a mother.
Right. Everything. How do your girls feel with having their mom as a CEO? What is that? How do they articulate? Because I'm just thinking about my own experience with my kids. Someone asked her last night, how does it feel to be the daughter of the founder of Kids in the Spotlight? She's like, she's always busy.
Yeah.
I was like, ooh, I felt that.
Yeah.
But how do your girls see you or view you? How do they feel about you leading such an amazing organization?
Yeah, I think they'll probably understand the significance of
Later.
it more as they get older.
Right.
But they do appreciate it. I mean, similar to what your daughter expressed, they also are like, you're always on the phone. Like when I pick them up from school, I'm on a call. So they're like, you're always on the phone. Just last weekend, my youngest Emma was like, you didn't work this weekend. Like, I'm so proud of you, Mom. Because I'm usually doing something. I'm home, but I'm like on the computer, or like I had gala season, so I was out a lot. But I know that they are proud because they'll, if there's something that comes up at school where they're supporting Ronald McDonald House at their school or something, they're like, oh yeah, they're like, oh, that's my mom.
Yes. I love it. Is there anything else you would like to just share with our audience, just to encourage them, especially any young people who are aspiring to be a CEO or who are new in the C-suite? What encouraging words would you like to share, or advice that you'd like to share with them?
Yeah, I think for people that are in a similar mindset as me, where I never saw myself in the CEO position, I was really driven by my personal mission and my passion for making an impact. And so I took on positions where I thought my skill set could really fulfill that role and I could do well, but I also didn't have all the answers. It wasn't like I looked through the job description and all the boxes were checked.
Right.
So I think just having that confidence that when you're aspiring for that next level position, you don't need to know it all. You just have to have the core of those skill sets.
That's good.
And then the other pieces will come together, especially if you're an inquisitive person and you're asking questions and you're connecting with people that are in that same position and are doing really well, and you're willing to meet and ask them those questions, seeking those mentors, I think is really important. Because when I applied for the CEO position, even though I'd been an executive director, this was much bigger. I went from managing a $3 million budget to a $20 million budget, and over 120 million in assets. We have all of this property. So even still, almost 3 years into my position, I'm still learning so much every single day.
We're forever learning.
Yes, forever learning. So if you were to ask me, like, do you have it all figured out? I would say nobody ever has it all figured out. Yes.
And if they think they do, it makes me a little bit nervous, but.
Especially because I'm taking the organization on a new journey it hasn't been on, right? Because we're evolving. So we're modernizing the organization, and I'm really aspiring for excellence in everything that we do.
Yes.
Not perfection. But right? Excellent.
We always say excellent is the standard, not the goal.
Yes.
It is the standard.
Yes. So in order for us to get there, I tease the staff, is like we have to analyze and test. Like we have to try something and analyze it, test it, and if it doesn't work, okay, let's try something else, right? Because we don't have all the answers. We have to try things to see if it works. So that's where we're at right now. We're experiencing a lot of change, and change can be scary. It can be painful.
Yes, it can.
Right? And people, I think, what I've learned is everyone's on board with the idea of the change, and then once you start to embark on the change, then all of a sudden people are not as excited. So, but they know it's necessary, and I think just bringing everyone along for that is important. Having them be part of that change is important. But I would, going back to your question, I think ultimately just having confidence in yourself that if you really feel passionate about the mission that you're looking to serve, you know, whether it's for-profit or nonprofit, you'll know inside, like, this is the right job for me. This is the right opportunity for me. It's not about the paycheck. It's about living your purpose, right?
Yes.
And I
Absolutely.
think you said that in your TED Talk. Yes, I remember that.
It
living
is
your
about
purpose.
living your purpose. And as nonprofit leaders, we are, I like to consider us as servant leaders.
Yes.
You know, we're here to serve, even in this leadership capacity. And you have to have the passion, you have to have the heart, and you have to understand purpose. And your purpose in particular, right?
Yeah, and leading with love. I think you talked about that too, right? Like,
absolutely.
I mean, I will say openly all the time, I love the staff, I love the families.
Yeah.
You know, and I've been around long enough where I see family.
them.
I've seen kids grow up. I've seen kids die, and I've gone to funerals, and you know, so I've walked along this journey with the families. I mean, not every single day. That's a whole other level, but at least have been part of their journey, and our families are our purpose.
Yes.
Yeah.
God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the work that you do. I know, I just can only imagine just being under your leadership. It must be exciting to just watch you navigate. So thank you.
Thank you.
They're telling me it's time to wrap up. That's the only time I really don't like them, when it's like, you gotta wrap up. This has been amazing. Again, thank you for being here today. Guys, that is our show for today. I know you heard something from Fatima that will help you on your leadership journey. So make sure you do those 3 magical words: like, share, and subscribe. And remember to stay focused and be intentional on your leadership journey. And also, you heard today, walk in purpose. Never, ever eliminate the reality and the power of walking in purpose. Until next time, have a great day. Bye now.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is our show for today. I hope you were inspired and you gained some valuable nuggets that will help you to become a better leader and to walk in your God-given authority. Bye, until next time.